Yesterday, Adam Schefter talked about some quarterbacks who might become free agents next season. One name he mentioned was Sam Darnold, and he suggested that the Las Vegas Raiders could be a realistic destination for him. Let's dive into this and break it down. Schefter started by saying that the offseason is always about quarterbacks, and this one will be no different. He mentioned some interesting possibilities, starting with Pittsburgh. There's been speculation about Russell Wilson returning to the Steelers, and while many think it's unlikely, Schefter revealed that conversations are still happening between Wilson and the organization. It's not guaranteed, but the door isn't completely closed. Another name linked to Pittsburgh is Justin Fields. The Steelers have made it clear they'd love to bring him back. However, Fields is expected to attract interest from several teams, so it'll be interesting to see if Pittsburgh can make it work. Now, the spotlight shifts to Sam Darnold. Currently with the Minnesota Vikings, the team has expressed interest in keeping him, but it won't come cheap. A franchise tag is on the table, but Schefter hinted that the Las Vegas Raiders might be a team to watch. It seems like the Raiders, who desperately need a quarterback, could make a move for Darnold. Schefter also touched on the situation with Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. With a new coaching staff and general manager in place, changes could be coming. Many believe Rodgers might not stay in New York, but nothing is certain yet. First, Rodgers needs to decide if he even wants to keep playing. Once he does, the league will be watching closely to see what happens next. So, there you have it. Schefter believes the Raiders could seriously pursue Sam Darnold as they look to fill their quarterback void. Let's see how this unfolds. The Raiders have made some big changes recently, and things are looking very different from last year. One of the biggest changes was bringing in Tom Brady, who now has a lot of influence over key decisions. For example, Brady reportedly preferred John Spytek over Tom Telesco as general manager, and the Raiders made that switch, even though Telesco did a great job with last year's draft. Despite his success, Telesco was fired, likely because of Brady's input with team owner Mark Davis. To me, it seems like Tom Brady knows what he's doing. I believe he and the Raiders are ready to take things to the next level. One great move by the Raiders was hiring Super Bowl-winning head coach Pete Carroll. He's a solid leader. To balance things out, they also brought in Chip Kelly, an offensive mastermind. Kelly has successfully built offensive systems for teams like Oregon, the Eagles, UCLA, and Ohio State. His experience will be a huge asset for the Raiders. This is a big deal because installing an offense isn't the same as just calling plays. It's about teaching players how to run specific routes, adjust to defenses, and make quick decisions on the field. Previous attempts with Luke Getsy didn't work out, both with the Bears and the Raiders, but Chip Kelly knows how to get it right. Now, if Sam Darnold had been with the Raiders last year, he probably wouldn't have succeeded. But this year could be different thanks to the coaching staff. If Darnold joins the Raiders, he might actually thrive. Defensively, Patrick Graham will handle play calling. His partnership with Pete Carroll could create an elite defense, depending on which free agents the Raiders manage to bring back. Adam Schefter believes the Raiders are a team to watch for Sam Darnold. And here's the kicker. Darnold will be a free agent unless the Vikings decide to franchise tag him. That means the Raiders wouldn't need to give up valuable first-round picks to sign him. It'll be exciting to see how this unfolds. The thing with the Vikings franchise tagging Sam Darnold is that once they tag him, they're financially committed. His salary becomes guaranteed, and it hits the cap even if they trade him later. That's a big deal for the Vikings because they never planned on paying Darnold $40 to $50 million. When they handed out huge contracts to Justin Jefferson, Christian Darrisaw, and Jonathan Greenard, they were betting on having a rookie quarterback like J.J. McCarthy on a cheaper deal to balance the budget. But that plan didn't pan out, and now their cap space is all over the place. They're not in a great position to pay a high-priced quarterback like Darnold. This opens the door for the Raiders. Darnold might be available as a free agent unless the Vikings pull a surprise move. But the challenge for the Raiders is their cap space. It's not in great shape either, so signing Darnold could get expensive. Adam Schefter's report suggests that Aaron Rodgers won't return to the Jets. Justin Fields will be a hot target, and Sam Darnold remains someone the Raiders should watch. With Tom Brady and a revamped coaching staff in place, things are different this year. The Raiders are getting a quarterback. It's just a matter of who. Shifting gears, let's talk about the Eagles' Super Bowl win yesterday. More than just celebrating their victory, it's important to learn from their strategy. The Eagles have laid out a winning blueprint over the last decade, appearing in 3 Super Bowls and winning 2. Interestingly, they didn't rely on superstar quarterbacks. First, they won with Nick Foles, then with Jalen Hurts. The key wasn't the quarterback, it was their elite roster, especially their offensive and defensive lines. Their trenches are rock solid, with not just great starters like Mai Becton, but also solid backups like Tyler Steen, who's expected to take over as a starter soon. On defense, they built with smart draft picks like Jordan Davis. The Raiders need to follow this blueprint, build strong trenches, and create a roster that supports any quarterback, whether it's a superstar or a system player. That's how you win Super Bowls. The Eagles' defensive strategy is impressive. They've developed players like Josh Sweat, who was a 4th-round pick, and kept him around until he blossomed. He had 2.5 sacks yesterday. Sure, people know stars like Jalen Carter, but the Eagles also have hidden gems like Milton Williams, Hunt, and Nolan Smith. The Eagles' strong pass rush reminds me of the Raiders' potential. The Raiders might not have Jalen Carter, but they have Max Crosby, arguably just as dominant. If healthy, a defensive line with Max Crosby, Malcolm Koonce, Adam Butler, and Christian Wilkins could be elite. Add backups like Clavon Chason and Tyree Wilson, and you've got depth too. Revamping this defensive line is crucial for the Raiders to compete, especially against the Chiefs. Last season, the one time they beat Kansas City was because they put relentless pressure on Patrick Mahomes. That's how you win against top quarterbacks, just like the Eagles did all season. But here's the challenge. It's going to be expensive. The Raiders have 27 free agents, and bringing them all back could cost around $89 million, despite having about $95 million in cap space. Even on low estimates, guys like Malcolm Koonce and Trayvon Moehrig would cost $13 million each, Adam Butler around $7 million, and Nate Hobbs about $5 million. Sure, they could replace some of these players, but even a budget backup quarterback costs at least $985,000. The numbers add up fast. So, the Raiders have some big decisions ahead if they want to build a championship-caliber defense. The Raiders face tough decisions this offseason. Players like Trayvon Moehrig and Malcolm Koonce are valuable homegrown talents. Moehrig is shaping up to be a top 5 safety, and Koonce looked like a top 10 pass rusher in the back half of last season. Letting either walk would be risky, but replacing them won't be easy or cheap. That's why teams like the Ravens succeed. They hold on to players who show potential. The Raiders need to do the same with key starters like Moehrig, Koonce, Adam Butler, Nate Hobbs, and Robert Spillane. However, keeping all 5 could cost a fortune. Even swapping veteran players for rookies wouldn't solve all their cap problems. And then there's the quarterback dilemma. If they decide to pay Sam Darnold $40 million, they'll lose out on retaining these core players. They might save money by cutting guys like Gardner Minshew or even trading Jacoby Myers, but that brings its own risks. Drafting replacements is an option, but letting someone like Nate Hobbs walk would be painful. He's an excellent slot defender, but financial realities might force that move. Even with an elite defensive line, the Raiders need to fix their offensive line to be a real contender. Just look at the Eagles in the Super Bowl, arguably the best offensive line in the NFL. They ran plays with 5 linemen pushing 4 defenders downfield. Meanwhile, the Raiders had to rely on tight ends and running backs just to protect the quarterback. That limits the passing game and makes it harder to stretch the field. If the Raiders want to be legit in 2025, it starts in the trenches, both on defense and offense. The Raiders need to revamp their offensive line to become a true contender. Right now, they can't consistently protect with just 5 linemen. That limits their ability to run effective passing plays. Luckily, they already have 2 solid cornerstones, Colton Miller, who's only 28, and Paris Johnson, just 21. These two could anchor the line for the next 5 years. But the real problem lies at left guard, and right tackle. There's been a lot of chatter about whether the Raiders should bring back Jordan Meredith or sign free agents like Mekhi Becton or Trey Smith. These guys are physical and could boost the line, but Smith alone would cost $12 million, and that's just not realistic given the team's cap situation. The team is already looking at $40 million just to fill out the roster with lower-cost players. Keeping core talents like Malcolm Koonce, Trayvon Moehrig, Adam Butler, and Nate Hobbs could easily cost $10 million each. So what's the solution? The upcoming draft offers one of the best classes for interior offensive linemen in the past 20 years. This is the Raiders' chance to secure young, affordable talent for their offensive line. If they decide not to pay Koonce, they could target defensive prospects like Abdul Carter or Mike Green in the top 10. But no matter what, smart drafting will be key to building a competitive and cost-effective roster. The Raiders need to address their offensive and defensive lines in the 2025 draft. If they choose to move on from Malcolm Koonce and save his hefty $18 million salary, they have solid draft options like James Pierce Jr., who brings elite movement at 6 feet 5 inches and 260 pounds. Abdul Carter may be off the board by then, but Pierce Jr. could be the answer at defensive end. However, the smarter move might be focusing on a future right tackle with the 6th pick. Two strong contenders are Josh Conerly and Josh Simmons Jr. Both have great potential, despite Conerly's shaky Senior Bowl performance. There's also Anthony Belton, though he might be a better value in the second round as a guard. Speaking of guards, the Raiders must prioritize getting 2 new people movers on the offensive line. Right now, players like Dylan Parham and Jordan Meredith are gap holders, not movers. The team needs linemen who can push defenders out of the way, creating lanes for the run game. Charles Grant and Anthony Belton fit that bill perfectly and could become top-tier guards. If the Raiders want long-term success, investing in players who can dominate the trenches will be crucial. The Raiders have key decisions to make in the upcoming draft. If they don't use their 6th pick for a defensive end or offensive tackle, they should consider wide receiver options like Tetairoa McMillan or Travis Hunter. Hunter may even fall to the 6th pick if quarterbacks dominate the top 5. The team desperately needs a full-time wide receiver who can consistently produce. If the Raiders clear cap space, they could aim for top talents like Amari Cooper or even Higgins by making smart moves with contracts. However, the real foundation for success lies in fixing the offensive and defensive lines. Sable, Jonah Savannah, and Tely Simkins are promising interior offensive linemen to target in the later rounds. The Eagles built a dominant team by focusing on the trenches, and it paid off with back-to-back Super Bowl appearances. The Raiders can do the same by securing 2 strong guards and a dependable right tackle. As for the quarterback position, options range from veterans like Aaron Rodgers to young talents like Jalen Milroe. But success starts up front. Building a powerful offensive and defensive line is the path to winning football. Thumbs up if you agree. Subscribe for more updates, and I'll see you next time.